Once again, we are learning the harsh lessons of First Worldism. Now, just recently, the U.S. House of Representatives voted on the war budget that U.S. President Donald Trump put forward. And they decided, overwhelmingly, even in the Democratic side, that the U.S. war machine was worth $738 billion. And this, of course, being a record amount being given in a regular budget to the Department of Defense. Now, the reason I bring this up is that one of the major voters, one of the people that you would think wouldn't vote for this, but did, was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, one of the things that First Worldists like to do is they like to go on and on about how, yeah, it's going to be different this time. Now, people think that, look, socialism is looked at more favorably now than ever in U.S. history. And now we got a real chance of voting in socialism, even though we already know that you can't vote in socialism. Okay. I mean, that's basically one of the most basic principles of Marxist theory, is that you can't vote it in, and that one must overthrow the other. I mean, you could read Reform and Revolution, as a lot of people seemingly haven't. And I've noticed a lot of people who have always toed the line that no, you cannot simply vote in socialism, now suddenly turning around and supporting this kind of utter nonsense. But what is it that Third Worldists have been saying? That the main argument here against the reactionary line of First Worldism is that the people in the First World, the working class of the First World, will take all the benefits. They'll take any benefit that's offered to them and then just completely ignore the part about imperialism. And that you can bribe them every single time to support the system. And that's kind of the point. You can buy off first world people, and one of those is by offering them all the nice social democratic benefits that basically almost all European countries, or at least in the Western European countries, already have. And isn't that exactly what we've just seen? Wasn't AOC one of the biggest opponents of Trump, and rightfully so? But look, here it is. Once we get right down to the actual nitty-gritty, what it actually does in real life, the Democratic Socialists of America, I would like to emphasize the quotation marks from the word socialist, because they're not socialists at all in any way, shape, or form. They are social democrats. What do we see here once again with AOC? Completely towing the line of imperialism. Yes, I know she makes these like really lofty speeches about how the wars are wrong, we should stop this. Also, every reason that the war should happen, she keeps defending, but then says that the war is wrong. Yeah, you know, we shouldn't have wars, but, you know, all the reasons for doing it are perfectly valid. Which is a complete contradiction. You see the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, and she's got cred because she was in the military, because that means you should trust her, right? If anybody you should trust as being anti-war, someone who was in the military, is proud of being in the military, supports the troops in what they do, but then claims to do the opposite. I mean, it just really seems like common sense to me. But here it is, we see, you know, again, one of the real progressives that want to change things end up towing the exact same line, as usual. And frankly, without putting up any kind of a fuss, without even doing it. You would think that at least they would vote against it. So it's right here in our faces. Once again, we have these people from the Democratic Socialists of America talking about how, yeah, we're socialists, we're gonna come down and we're gonna fight the capitalism by literally making things easier for capitalists by giving universal health care, etc., but then allowing the capitalists to continue to exist, which is the opposite of socialism. Now, I'm not saying universal healthcare is a bad thing. I'm saying even in the context of capitalism, universal healthcare makes sense. That's why capitalist countries have universal healthcare systems as well. Not only is it more efficient, leads to a better health for the general population, which makes them more effective workers. The burden of having to pay a health insurance for employees is now basically moot because there's a universal healthcare system in place, so it makes it better for them. So even just having a universal healthcare system, although I do support it, isn't in itself a revolutionary act. I mean, it may feel that way to Americans who are so used to getting dumped on by their own capitalist class that as soon as they get some kind of small social democratic reform, it feels like this huge victory, when it really isn't. It's a victory that you got it and now you're going to have better health, absolutely. But thinking this is a step towards socialism is nonsense. And that's one of the things that they try to claim, is that, well, if we do all these reforms, then that'll make Americans like more likely to accept socialism, except that it doesn't. One, it completely falsely portrays social democracy as socialism. So when you claim they go closer to socialism, no, they don't. They go closer to social democracy. So that's absolute bullshit. Second, try reading some Lenin. Now, I understand if you're not a Leninist and you think that's how things are going to work. In the logic of your system, yeah, I guess you would think that. It's still wrong. But if you're a Leninist and the whole rejection of, you know, this kind of nice, soft social democratic reform, that it needs revolution, and Lenin in the Second International denounced the European countries which were moving into social democracy and giving up on socialism, and still ending up supporting the wars because they were getting all of the nice social democratic reforms from imperialism. I mean, he literally already warned about that. He already said that was a thing. So you're literally just repeating something in contradiction to Lenin. Hey, if you oppose Lenin and oppose his teachings, by all means, go ahead. It would make sense to you. But you can't say you're a Leninist and then go and do the opposite of what Lenin is arguing for. Unless, of course, you had some kind of rational argument against him. I mean, by all means, if you can prove Lenin is wrong on something, lol. But I suppose you can try, and if you can come up with a reasonable argument to go against his theories, by all means. But there isn't here. It's just people literally just standing up and metaphorically spitting in his face. Now, if you're an actual socialist, this is a problem. But if you're a DSA liberal, you're not a socialist. And this has to come to an end. Bernie Sanders is not a socialist. He literally shills for imperialism. How many times has he voted for wars? How many times has he voted for the war budgets that do the very thing that he claims that he's against? Sometimes he claims he's against. Other times he's outright in support of it. How many times do they claim that they're against the war? They claim that they're against imperialism, and then turn around and support every reason for it. I mean, it's complete and utter nonsense. But first world people are going to buy it, because they're going to get the nice, soft, social democratic reforms that they want. And to hell with the third and, to a degree, the second world that actually has to go up with the super exploitation and the super oppression in order to pay for all those social democratic goodies, or the free stuffs, as they like to say. And that's what's really disgusting about all this. Now, I'm going to dip a little bit into identity politics to point out a really huge hypocrisy here. And I know I'm not black, so therefore I'm automatically wrong. There are certain Pan-African organizations, and by the way, when I use the word African, they're actually Pan-Black American organizations who claim to be in solidarity with people in Africa. Although it's pretty obvious by now that black people in the United States have a different material interest than those living in Africa. You know, one of them gets hit with U.S. bombs, and the other one gets killed by U.S. police. That's very clearly two different things. Like how the DSA is very popular among black Americans. Yeah, usually middle-class black Americans, but you get my point. And how they still continue to support the wars. You don't think all the U.S. intervention that's going on in Africa right now is going to be paid for out of that $738 billion that they just voted for? Come on. And that's what I mean. That's one of the reasons why identity politics is bad. This is not to say that racism doesn't exist, because I'm not saying it doesn't. This doesn't mean that all other kinds of oppression don't exist, or that they shouldn't be fought, etc. I know that is the line that ID pollers take every time when you point out, yes, you have to do class struggle first to build the foundation to get rid of all the other oppressions. Oh, you mean that your revolution has to come first and mine has to come later? Oh, lol, you're racist. No, this is science. You know how this is revolutionary science. You know, like how you have to build the foundation of a building before you build the building. You know, kind of like that whole thing. But again, we are looking at another instance where these so-called progressives, they're promising you all the free social democratic benefit, all the free stuff, but then turn around and completely shit on the third world and exploit them. It's almost like we live in capitalism or something. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.